Hello once again, America. Welcome to the Race Report. I'm your colorful host, Jordan Brown. Last time on the show, we discussed Colin Kaepernick's controversial protests and the Black American police brutalities that sparked it. Racism isn't just involved in sports. Celebrities and athletes aren't the only ones with opinions. Politicians themselves have strong opinions and influence on racism and police brutalities. Two specific figures would be the newly elected President Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. When it comes to American politics, race and racism have always flown through it. It seems as if this campaign specifically has strong presence on racial issues. The language, statements, and opinions stated during this presidential race have been quite alarming when you really think about it. After Trump won the election earlier this month, many protesters have broken out across the nation. Citizens have taken to the streets of America peacefully protesting Donald Trump's election. Now, the many responses to these protests is this isn't going to change anything. The people protesting are a bunch of sore losers. If you're thinking that, I can understand. But the reason why the protest isn't solely looking for it to change, but to let Trump, his supporters, and America know that they won't forget how he ran his campaign to get into office. Let's start when Donald Trump proposed the idea of building a wall along the southern border of the United States. Donald Trump has said, quote, "When Mexico sends its people, they aren't sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people," unquote. Now, the process of building the wall or the idea of it isn't what I want to point out, but his use of racism. Being safe is important, yes, and there may be supporters of the wall, but in the statement, Trump made it clear who needed to be protected from who. When in reality, American citizens have committed crime just like documented and undocumented immigrants. In fact, according to the Oxford Handbook of Criminology Theory, researchers keep finding that immigrants are less crime-prone than their native-born counterparts. You can say that Trump just doesn't know how to word it right or that the statement wasn't racist. In fact, Trump claims to not have the racist bone in his body, but that just sounds like the good old, "it's okay, I have black friends" rebuttal. The campaign Trump has missed opportunities to renounce white supremacists who have campaigned for him. On February 28th, he was asked on CNN if he would condemn David Duke, a former KKK leader, and to denounce his vote. Trump's response was he didn't know anything about him or white supremacists. Now, Trump has to know about white supremacists, especially if he has their support. According to the Huntington Post, Trump has support from the Daily Stormer, a leading Nazi news site, Richard Spencer, director of the National Policy Institute, which promotes the heritage, identity, and future of European people, Jared Taylor, editor of American Renaissance, a Virginia-based white nationalist magazine, Michael Hill, head of the League of South, an Alabama-based white supremacist sectionist group, and Brad Griffin, a member of Hill's League of South and author of the popular white supremacist blog, Hunter Wallace. Okay, so these people aren't Donald Trump himself, but his track record doesn't help either. During a rally in Alabama, a video was released of an African-American protesting Black Lives Matter, who then was physically attacked by Trump supporters, then kicked while on the ground trying to escape. The next day, Trump said attackers were justified and even mocked the man. In 1973, while Trump was president of his family's real estate company, Trump Luxury Real Estate, the Justice Department sued the company for alleged racial discrimination against black people looking to rent apartments in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. The complaint was that the company was giving different rental terms and conditions to black rental candidates than it did with the white candidates. Also, that the company had lied about not having available apartments to black applicants. Originally, Trump denied the accusations, and sued the Justice Department for $100 million in damages for defamation. But after 2 years, the company settled the lawsuit and said they wouldn't discriminate blacks or other minorities again. That is until the company was sued again just 3 years later for the same thing. Now, there are a lot more facts and controversies surrounding Donald Trump, but I digress. The issue here is that the newly elected president's beliefs and opinions makes are signs of racism and prejudice. He has Klan members stating what he believes they believe. Now, thinking about that for a second. Regardless if he's affiliated with them or not, their beliefs are the same as Trump's. Trump believes the entire Black Lives Matter movement is wrong and only looking for trouble. But that is not the case. The Black Lives Matter movement was ignited by suspected police killings of African Americans institutional racism with it. But Trump and other politicians like New York Senator Mayor Rudy Giuliani believe that they are racist themselves and have no backing for their claim, which is far from the truth. When looking at police killings of blacks in America, the thought process by many is, aren't more white people being shot by police? In a way, yes, but also no. 1,502 people have been shot and killed by police officers since January 1st, 2015, according to a study done by the Washington Post. 732 were white, 381 were black, and 382 were other races. White people make up 62% of the American population, while being 49% of those killed by the police officers. African Americans are 30% of the population, while being 24% of those killed by police officers as well. That means black Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed than white people. Unarmed black Americans are 5 times more likely to be shot and killed by police officers. Among 40% of the unarmed people shot and killed by police since 2015 are black men, who make up just 6% of the nation's population. Some would say, why focus on police shootings when blacks commit black and black crime? Specifically, some would refer to Chicago as a beacon for black and black crime. While community violence is another pressing issue that many African Americans are involved in, it's still a different issue than police shootings against African Americans. The FBI has found that 90% of black homicide victims were by other black people in 2014, while 82% were white people killing other white people. The University of California conducted studies that there was no correlation between crime rates by race and racial bias in police killings. 50 major cities' crime rates were compared on a map and were shown that there was no relationship at all. Now, when we look at what could be the solution or maybe the step forward to better outcomes between police and African Americans, some believe it could be that it starts with the training. Police follow procedures that are trained to follow that could be escalating tensions in some locations. Policing crime, for instance, is one. Tracy Mears, a professor at Yale Law School and a member of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, suggests that Philando Castle was stopped because of the city having some type of broken windows policy. The policy focused on the importance of disorder in generating and sustaining more serious crimes. But the research on broken windows policy is mixed and necessarily unclear. An idea that the Justice Department has already started is having more implicit bias training or other more racially aware training. Many ethnic communities complain that they feel being over-policed and yet underprotected, that both trainings could help with that, decreasing their feelings. Inherent biases are a real thing that we have to take into consideration as well. Inherent biases are the effect of underlying factors or assumptions that skew viewpoints, a subject under discussion. A growing adoption in departments is body cameras. Body cameras will provide the facts in what happens with police and civilians from a certain point. While body cameras don't prevent shootings or incidents, they still give multiple views that lets you diagnose what happened, where training could have gone wrong, and how to operate this situation differently. Now, I sat down with Hastings College student Donald Santos and discussed some of the police relationships with African Americans today in this year's campaign. So I want to thank you again, Donato, for being on my show today.
Of course.
So many of us know that you're becoming a police officer in the future. So do you want to tell me the process of that?
Yeah, many different agencies have different hiring processes. There's an invitation type application process and an open application process. Some of the application processes that I've been involved in, both open and invitational, it starts out with applying. So giving your resume, whether or not you're a lateral officer, meaning you're coming from a different department, or if you're a grad student, anything like that. They'll review all of that. They'll go through your resume. If you have any other outstanding stuff like that, they'll do a quick background check just to make sure that you don't already have outstanding criminal charges or anything like that. Once they accept you, there's 3 testing phases. There's a written test or a video test, a physical test, and then an oral board. So you'll sit down with different officers and they'll just ask you questions about things that could come up in your everyday job. Once you get past all 3 of those tests, if you do, they put you in a band. And for instance, there's bands A through Z. If you get placed in A through D, there's a high chance that you're going to get hired. And then from that step, they'll go through and do your polygraph, your lie detector test, any other background stuff that they need to do, psychological testing. And then if you pass all that, you get put into the academy. And then that's a 6-month process all on its own.
Okay. Leading to my next question, with everything going on in the country right now, what is your motivation to protect and serve people here in America?
We need minority people in law enforcement. Law enforcement is a power position. There's a power with, I mean, it comes with being able to hold a gun, but you're also part of the law. And we need minorities, we need women, we need those people in those positions, the people that are marginalized in our society, to have those power positions. And that goes even for other job titles, but especially this one with what's going on in everyday contemporary America that we live in. We need minority people in these positions.
Do you know any ways you can inform more people, minorities or females, you just said, to get in these jobs? I feel like some people may not, they have maybe the idea, but don't have maybe the information to know the process of even getting into that situation.
All departments have a ride-along process. I feel like a lot of people don't understand how police work in their everyday job. I mean, we see the shootings on TV every day. We see it all over Facebook, all over social media. People don't know that that's not the whole job. An everyday officer isn't going to go and just go knocking people out, go save the day, all that. There's a lot more to it. So I feel like if people just go and take the steps to take a ride along, just be with an officer, do an internship, anything like that, they learn so much more than they see just via social media.
Do you believe that that race has had any effect when it comes to policing here in America?
Yeah. Everybody has their own biases. And whether or not these show up in officers that we have today is kind of case to case. There are obviously bad eggs. That goes for even the Black Lives Matter movement, the feminist movement. There's always those bad eggs that give a bad rep for the rest of the group.
Yeah.
And there's some great officers. I know plenty of great officers that aren't worried about the color of people's skin. They're just here to protect and serve. But with the shootings and the separation between white and black, and then even other minority groups and the law, it's definitely made things a lot tougher for us in the U.S., that's for sure.
A lot of shootings have ranged from young kids, the ages of 10, to older men in the ages of 40. So when you see or hear these videos of these people being shot by police, what goes through your head exactly?
I always want to know more. So what we see on CNN, whatever they do an update, whatever news body is doing the story on it, there's always more to it. They get the gist of it when they show up and they film a body laying on the ground or officers taping off stuff, and they get a statement from whoever's in charge. There's always more to it. You don't get, a lot of people, I mean, the society doesn't get to see what happened during the chase, what happened during the traffic stop, what happened going into a house for a domestic. People don't see that stuff. That's where I think the body cameras for officers has definitely, it's an important thing, first of all, just to make sure the officers are handling themselves in the correct manner, but then it's a great thing for evidence. So in the cases where there is brutality, that camera itself, if people in society aren't there to be able to film it, that camera itself can be used to weed out these bad eggs that we have in law enforcement and commend the officers that are doing a good job. The media doesn't show officers doing great things. It shows officers doing the bad things or the things that spark our society. So, I mean, the body cameras, I feel like is a big thing that...
I like that you mentioned that, because I remember reading about it in articles and research that body cameras, obviously body cameras are the newest thing going into departments, but I can't remember what the officer's name was. We said, last idea of body cameras because it kind of gives you the mindset to hold yourself accountable, even when you might not want to. Obviously, I'm not a police officer, I don't know how the situation is, but he said as a police officer, it makes you want to hold yourself accountable. And also gives us another insight of what, from different angles and point of view, vantage points, what's going on, which I think is good. But I'm kind of transitioning to another question and kind of leading to kind of the campaign a little bit. Do you think Trump has any effect on how people view Black Lives Matter or even black people in general during this election this year?
I've heard Trump say some of positive things towards minorities, and then obviously there's some negative things, and then whether or not people, the way they interpret that is up to them. I feel like I saw something at one point in time talking about Trump wanting to take funds and move it to the places that are socially disorganized, so areas where minority schools aren't doing as well as the white schools. And I see that as being a great thing, but he also said stuff about how Obama wasn't a good cheerleader for pushing that stuff, for getting funds into the inner city school. It's not about whether or not the schools have the motivation to do it. It's the lack of funding, and just there's no push to be better. So it's one thing to say, I want to be the reason why all these schools are doing better. I want to be the reason why there's funds there, but actually going and getting the funds to these places that are socially disorganized, I think this is going to be it's going to be a big task for Trump in regards to separating himself from the racist that everybody wants to make him out to be, compared to the president, the commander-in-chief of the U.S., because obviously he's going to have to deal with blacks, Muslims, the whole sea. So, yeah, I think that's it for.
I mean, as I talked about before in my show, there's plenty of cases where it shows of him acting in racist ways or saying racist things. Just one thing back in the late '90s, he has made comments with people in his jobs, been written in books from people he's worked with who have said things about him. Do you think, even if given him a chance, will we ever look a blind eye? Like, I know he's my president, but I've seen things, I've heard things, and I've also read that some of these things are facts.
Yeah.
Especially things about the Department of Justice suing him back about 20, 30 years ago when he took over his dad's company over renting out apartments, not giving them to black people, but offering to white people. So what do you think about that exactly?
It happens more on a regular level than we actually believe it to be. So institutional racism happens across the board. The fact that our president-elect has been accused of these things and has maybe been involved in things that we wouldn't want someone that's in a power position to be a part of, I feel like it's just part of the life. I mean, we know him to be the big celebrity guy, and I just feel like although he has made huge mistakes, things that the public doesn't see as appropriate for someone that's in this position, he also got voted in, so we're gonna have to just deal with it. I mean, it's a good thing that there are policies in place that where if something did happen, our government would be able to handle things swiftly, move him out, whatever it need be. But we all make bad decisions in our lives. Whether or not we can grow from it and learn from those decisions will be interesting to see if he can step up and learn from his mistakes.
I agree. Coming to a close on our interview, what is your solution to any bad relations between police and African Americans?
Get involved. Like I said, with the ride-alongs, that's a huge step. And then when in the situations where there's shootings and stuff like that, get educated on it. Know about the recent shootings, know about what officers are involved in the shootings, and then try to find, I mean, it's hard because in the investigation process, they're not gonna just drop a bunch of information on it, but follow the stories. Keep up to date on any updates that the agency gives or the news gives, and then try to keep open mind. A lot of the times it's, I mean, from what I see on the media, it's the African American, the black community saying there's another African American getting beaten up by the police, there's another Hispanic getting beaten up by the police, when in reality there is white people that get beat up by the police all the time. There's women that get beat up by the police. There's police getting beat up by people from all different backgrounds. There's just recently 4 shootings yesterday,
Yeah.
with police-involved shootings. So just support. The police community needs to support the black community, the Hispanic community, the women, the white community, and then all of those communities need to support the police. In order to, I mean, see any change, it's gonna have to take both sides working together. And I think the community policing process of working with each other to stop crime is gonna have to be, it's gonna have to make a comeback, because from the 90s on to now, it's changed just every year with the different events that we have, the riots, the shootings, the Trayvon killing. Everything has changed to where the police are becoming more militaristic. And that image to people, it makes people feel like they're getting their power taken away from them. When you see these big guns, these guys in full Kevlar, tanks, all that stuff, it separates the community from the police when we just need to be one cohesive group. Thank you.
One.
Of course.
For America to move forward, we have to recognize that there is evidence of police brutality and institutional racism. Political leaders like Donald Trump, who believe in denouncing those who fight against racism and preach the same beliefs to his supporters, will only cause more racial division in America. On the last episode in the Race Report, we will look at what America is starting to look like post-election and what living on campus at Hastings is like as a minority. I'm Jordan Brown. This is the Race Report. Stay woke.